Hi, I'm Silmi. Now I will be presenting my paper titled Designing Vendor Selection System Using Intuitionistic Topsis with Entropy Weighting Method in Oil and Gas Industry. So, the object of this research is an upstream oil and gas industry. Its activities carried out including exploration, exploitation, production, and transmission of oil and gas. So this industry has a specific difference from the other industry, which is the obligation to follow the government's rule directly. And why vendor selection? So every company depends on its vendor capability according to OSPI. And the procurement of material or tools that are used for a production process contributes 50% until 70% of company's potential value and competitive advantage. And these are the problems that occur in that company. There are four major factors. First, there is management, vendor, product, and people. For example, in the management, there is a criteria that doesn't in accordance with regulation yet. And as you can see, here is a note. There is a note as about the guideline concerning management of health, safety, and environment that needs to be implied in this company as well as on its vendor. And for the vendor section, for example, is there is the historical data of vendor performance has not been considered. And for the product, as I said earlier, raw material used in production process contributes 50% until 70% potential value and competitive advantage of company. And for the people, so the decision makers consist more than one person with different preferences in assessing vendor. And the vendor assessment only based on the decision maker's experience. So the method that I use for this model is Intuitionistic Topsis with entropy weighting. Intuitionistic Topsis basically is a combination method between Intuitionistic fuzzy set and Topsis method. The Intuitionistic fuzzy set is a powerful tool to deal with vagueness comes from a human judgment. So because it assigns not only a membership degree but also a non-membership degree, even a hesitancy degree to on its element. Okay, so for the Topsis, it is one of a multi-criteria decision-making method. Its main concept is to choose the best alternative based on its nearest distance to positive ideal solution and furthest distance from its negative ideal solution. For the entropy weighting, it is a method to measure fuzziness defining the degree of impression and vagueness contained within matrix data. And this method can solve the problem of consistency fail when the layer number of criteria considered is too large. This is the reason why I choose the proposed method. The first one is a criteria used in vendor selection in oil and gas industry, not only quantitative but also qualitative. So I use the linguistic assessment approach. And the human judgment are often vague and cannot estimate its preference with exact numerical values. So it indicates the applicability of Intuitionistic fuzzy set because it is a powerful tool to deal with vagueness. And at Topsis, it is chosen because the ease of its applicability is easy calculation and better performance and better capability in handling larger criteria rather than other multi-criteria decision-making methods. And because I used a large number of criteria, so I choose the entropy weighting to overcome the possibility that inconsistency may be occur in this model. These are the steps of the proposed method that I will explain later in another slides. So these are the criteria that I use for this model. There are 22, and this is a result of literature study by considering the regulation and the company needs. This criteria has been accepted by the user through interview. And the first step from implying this method is about determining the decision maker's weight. This is the example for the calculation, and then this is the whole result. So, for example, the DM1 it weighs 0.545. It means that in a 100% decision-making process, the DM1 affects 54, sorry, the DM1 affects 54.5% of it. Okay. And the next step is to construct aggregated decision matrix. This is the example of the calculation, and then this is the result. And so this matrix shows the aggregation of the decision makers' assessment towards vendor. And the greater the mu value means the assessment of the vendor is higher in a certain criteria. Next is about the criteria weight. This is the example for calculating the criteria weight with entropy weighting. And this is the result. For this result, you can see in the C1, it weights 0.059. And it means in 100% vendor selection priorities, the C1 or conformance to specification affects or contributes 5.9% of it. And the highest weight is emergency delivery, and the lowest weight of criteria is return service. And next is a weighted aggregated decision matrix. This is the example for the calculation, and this is the result. So this matrix shows the function of this matrix is to combine the criteria weight and the aggregated decision matrix before. Next is about the intuitionistic fuzzy positive ideal solution and intuitionistic fuzzy negative ideal solution. This is the calculation for IFPIS, and this is for IFNIS. And next, this is the result for the IFPIS and IFNIS. So basically, the IFPIS, the function of the IFPIS is to maximize the benefit criteria and to minimize the cost criteria, and vice versa for IFNIS. For example, the C1 as a benefit criteria, it is a 0.091. It means that V1 is the best vendor amongst all candidates. And for the distance measurement is the next step. This is the example of the calculation for distance measurement, and this is the result for the distance measurement along with coefficient relative closeness and order of vendor. So this table shows the distance measurement and coefficient relative closeness. The greater the coefficient relative closeness means the alternative is nearer to IFPIS and further to IFNIS. Therefore, the alternative ranking is determined by descending the value of coefficient relative closeness. In this case, the V5, the vendor V5, is chosen as the recommendation vendor. And the conclusion, there are three conclusions. The first one is there are 22 criteria taken into consideration in accordance to company needs and regulation to assess vendors. And second, IFT and entropy weighting method has proven in being able to determine the ranking and alternatives and weighting the criteria. And then the third, IFT and entropy weighting method can be applied in any other industry that has high complexity. So thank you. That's all.